Hey everyone, Chaos Prime here. What? This isn't Chaos Prime ZYT. This hasn't even got any subs on it. That's of course, this is a new channel. This is my new Video Games news channel and reviews channel where I will just be sitting here talking about news of the day and just stuff that's happening in the video games that doesn't really fit into my channel. Today's topic, of course, has to be the ABK Microsoft dilemma that is continuously going on and has been doing the rounds, as it were, and completely overshadowing amazing games like the new Zelda Tears of Kingdom that have come out and just pushing it aside. It's a real shame because that game actually is a lot of fun. But the ABK news has been doing the rounds, and today's tribunal not tribunal, but parliamentary address with the CMA has proven once again that the CMA really have no idea what they're doing in terms of why they actually blocked this deal, outside of, and let me be candid with you, we want to block big tech, or they literally blocked it because they don't want games from Activision Blizzard being removed off their platform, Sony. I actually genuinely, after today's address, do not know which way they're actually on the fence with and why they actually blocked it. Their responses to Parliament today, the parliamentary committee, was so bad that it was almost laughable. But let's go back to the actual, point with the actual EU, because that was a big stepping stone for this and actually triggered a lot of discomfort, a lot of annoyance by the CMA, who genuinely believed that this EU would block this. Now, anyone with a inkling of common sense would have known that the EU would have passed this, and the EU had confirmed that they're not looking at cloud gaming as an isolated institute or an isolated thing. It's kind of part of the games industry and part of games as a whole, and it's such a minute part of gaming at the moment, and maybe in about 10, 15, 20 years it will be something bigger. Actually, I do believe it will be something bigger in 10, 15 years. It's still in its infancy at the moment, but for now, with a 1 to 3% issue, it's not a problem, and it's not something that they can actually take into consideration. Now, with the CMA, they've been watching the Minority Report movie way too much, it seems, because what they're doing is looking at the report pretty much like they were doing in a movie, right? Of what could happen if these events took place? What could happen if X, Y, and Z scenario played out? Or what could happen if Y, Z, and P scenario played out? And so based on those scenarios that they had that haven't yet materialized or even fabricated yet, they basically made the assessment that they were going to block it based on what ifs. Now, the problem is none of those are actually true. The reason why this failed is we want to block big tech, or we don't want the games off PlayStation. I'm more inclined to believe that we want to block big tech. Now, I can understand that justification because big tech is getting stronger and stronger, and they are beginning to have a lot more power. But they do have enormous amounts of power and can actually sway certain decisions and kind of bully their way through. And in certain regards, people are assuming that Microsoft is doing just that right now. And it's clear to see that, having these checks and balances for these big tech companies is really important, especially in stopping monopolies like the Nvidia and ARM deal that was blocked. Because if Nvidia actually bought ARM, they would have a huge, a monopoly in the CPU era. So that clearly wasn't going to happen. Was it Nvidia or was it Intel? I think it might have been Intel. Either way, but stuff like that was blocked, and it had justification. Now, the CMA can't just come out and say, we're going to block this because we want to block big tech. That is literally not a justification for this. They need to have legal grounds. So they decided to cling on to something called cloud gaming. Now, Microsoft's cloud gaming, I think they've got something like 20 million people that have apparently that play cloud gaming. Now, for those of you that don't know, Microsoft has this thing called rewards programs, and if you open your rewards program, it shows that if you log into a cloud game per day, you get 5 points, and those points then convert into currency. Now, you don't have to play the game literally just has to boot up, but that counts as a statistic for Microsoft to be able to lord. Now, based on that information, you cannot turn around and say that Microsoft has 70% of the market share. Amazon Prime has 200 million customers on Amazon Prime. Sorry, Amazon have 200 million customers on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime now has access to Amazon Luna. So if you're an Amazon Prime customer in the UK, you have access to Amazon Luna. They instantly have 200 million players. That is way more than the 20 million that Microsoft are advertising. But that's not, a factor in this, because for Microsoft, they're looking at it on a global scale at 20 million. But for every other company out there, they're looking at it on a regional setting, not a global setting. So there's already double standards here in order to find a reason to block this. Everything that the CMA has done is pretty bogus and pretty, shady when it comes to this deal. Now, if like I said, there are legitimate reasons to block this deal that, can't actually be actioned. Stopping big tech is one of them. Stopping big tech from growing and potentially harming innovation and harming competition is one of them. But this isn't the fight for that. This really isn't. Back when Windows was adding Windows Media Player into their system, the regulators intervened and basically said that you are not allowed to put this into your system on the basic model. If you do, you'll be done for anti-competitive trust. And so if you buy the basic version of Windows, it's actually not there. You have to go and actually download it yourself. It's crazy, I know, but that is a thing now. But that is some of the changes that has happened over time. One of the decisions was to get Microsoft to make Office available to other platforms on an equal footing. So you have that now on, iOS and Android. So, there are instances where the regulators actually do good work. But in this situation, just wanting to block something because I want to block big tech is simply not good enough. So now if we switch over to Twitter to see some of the stuff that the CMA actually said, we'll see here. And as soon as the EU decision came out, it says, our response to the European Commission's announcement today on the Microsoft Activision deal. This is really, really unprofessional. Just to give you some background, after this tweet that the CMA put out, they actually approached Vestager, the EU regulator, the head of EU regulation, and asked if they would like to comment on the CMA. And they said, well, if we have anything to say to them, we will basically act professionally and give them a call. They're a phone call away. We don't need to put it all over social media and basically cry like little babies. She didn't say that in so many words, but that is basically the gist of the actual response. But let's just go through with what the UK actually said. The CMA said, the UK, US and European competition authorities are unanimous that this merger would harm competition in cloud gaming. That is not what they said. That is not what the EU said. The EU said that they had concerns over cloud gaming within the EU, and that was mainly due to the licensing, if there was a fee to pay to Microsoft. Microsoft remedied that with the request of the EU by saying all licensing fees would be for free to all streaming platforms. So for stuff like GeForce Now, they wouldn't have to pay a licensing fee in order to play any Activision Blizzard game. All you need to do is actually buy the game from one of the supported platforms. And the EU said that is perfectly acceptable. So already here the CMA is lying. They are twisting what the words were said and are trying to bend the truth to their own will. The CMA concluded that cloud gaming needs to continue as a free competitive market to drive innovation choice in this rapidly evolving sector. Yes and no. They said that it needs to be free licensing wise, which is what Microsoft have agreed to. In terms of a rapidly evolving, they actually said it's an emerging market that has potential, not that it is actually growing. The fact that the CMA believe it's growing makes them sound even more silly. Microsoft's proposals accepted by the European Commission today would allow Microsoft to set the terms and conditions for this market for the next 10 years. That is, again, not true. They are still bound by the rules set by the EU regulators, and if they step outside of those rules that has been agreed between the EU and Microsoft, they will be held in contempt, and the deal could be broken. So Microsoft still has their hands tied to the regulators for the next 10 years. After 10 years, it's anyone's game. They would replace a free, open, and competitive market with one subject to ongoing regulation of the games Microsoft sells, the platforms to which it sells them, and the conditions of sale. So they're going to be available on Steam, they're going to be available on Epic Games, and I guess they're going to be available on the Microsoft Store. Maybe the CMA has a problem with the games being on sale on the Microsoft Store. Either way, you have to buy the game in order to stream it if you're going with a bring your own game situation like GeForce Now, which is basically what these are referring to. This is all referring to GeForce Now. It's not referring to Boosteroid. It's not referring to any other streaming platform that is out there. All these are engineered towards GeForce Now, because that is, to my knowledge, the only one where it's a bring your own game. So even this is really, really loose, because unlike previously where GeForce, NVIDIA had to pay a licensing fee, now they do not. The game is just going to appear on the streaming platform and people can bring their own game and play it. This is one of the reasons the CMA's independent panel group rejected Microsoft's proposals and prevented this deal. Basically, there is no reason why they prevented it, because that is not a justifiable reason. The remedy is already in place, and you're not going to get better than free. Just putting it out there. While we recognize and respect that the European Commission is entitled to a different view, the CMA stands by its decision, because it has to stand by its decision, because if they turned around now and said, I wonder why we didn't think of this, they would look absolutely bloody stupid. And they're not in the game to look bloody stupid, right? Let's not beat around the bush here. They're not going to turn around and say, hey everyone, we were wrong, and because of that, we apologize. No, they're not going to look weak. What they want to do is come up with another concession, bend the knee of Microsoft, and say, hey, everyone, we won because we made them bend the knee and we are all powerful. Anyway, if we actually go to this section of Twitter where we see the CMA is trending quite heavily at the moment, Satya Nadella has actually put a foot in it even more. The UK regulators refused to give direct answers for an hour on why they blocked the Microsoft Blizzard merger. So I was actually watching this live as it happened. Every time that the parliamentary panel actually was questioning Sarah Cardell, the head of UK's CMA, she would not give a straight answer. In fact, the panel turned around multiple times and actually got upset with her and told her to answer the question that was being answered and not answer a different question that wasn't being answered. And even then, she could not answer. Now, you tell me in the comment section below, if you were absolutely 100% accurately correct and believed what you were doing is correct, right? If you believe that you were justified in your decision to block, why would you skirt around simple questions that you can't answer? Why would you sidestep questions? Why would you deflect questions? The truth is, they have no answer, because the reason why they did block it is big tech, or the lesser of the two, obviously, is PlayStation. Now, let's see here. The CMA acknowledged that it's more likely they will block the merger than not. They will identify SLCs and they will not accept behavioral. Exactly. They're not looking for a way to actually work with Microsoft, because at the moment, all they want to do is block big tech. They're not looking for remedies. Microsoft went to the head offices of the CMA and they told Microsoft to piss off and wouldn't even let him in through the front door. Jim Ryan, on the other hand, walks in hours later. They opened the door and put the red carpet out. Just saying that, that sort of thing actually took place. When asked if he was surprised by the CMA's decision by the CNBC, Nadella said, very much so. In some cases, this is the most pro-competitive thing I've ever seen. Hey everyone, due to this being a brand new channel and not meeting requirements just yet, 15 minutes is the limit per video, and as this has gone on for about 28 minutes, I'm splitting this video into two. So this is the end of part 1, part 2 will follow straight after.